on the 30th of November. Finland appeared to be in a very bad position. It only had a 100,000-strong army, dwarfed by the Russian invasion force that initially numbered over 400,000 men.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're watching me for the first time, my name is Seed and I am super excited to meet you. Okay guys, we're checking out a video today and this one is titled Russian Invasion of Finland. Okay guys, the Winter War, and this is way back 1939 to 1940. Okay guys, Russian invasion of Finland. Okay, I am super excited to check this video out. I really want to know what happened in this video. Okay guys, if you're super excited as much as I am and you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please smash the like button, subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification bell guys, so you don't miss out whenever I upload a new video. Okay, to my returning subscribers, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys for always tuning in. Without wasting much of your time guys, let's check this video out.
For 3 months during the winter of 1939 to 40, little Finland resisted the might of Russia and survived. No one thought Finland could have done so against the full military might of the Soviet war machine, but she surprised the world.
Wow.
The reason why Russia decided to conquer Finland was simple: security. The Soviet Union was very concerned at the security of Leningrad, its second city and an important naval base, only 20 miles from the Finnish border, and asked Finland to give up some of its territory to Russia in exchange for land elsewhere along the border.
Wow.
What prompted this request was Soviet nervousness at the expansion of Nazi Germany, which had recently conquered Poland, and which Stalin distrusted immensely. The fear was that Germany, operating in concert with Finland, to which it was close anyway, might launch an attack on the Soviet Union. The Russians wanted to push the Finnish border back in the Karelian Isthmus, making Leningrad more secure, and also demanded a long-term lease on the port of 𝐋𝐈𝐊𝐄. The Finns flat out refused. Finland used to belong to the Russian Empire until, following the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, the Communists granted the right of self-determination to national minorities, including the right to become independent. In December 1917, Finland availed itself of this opportunity and declared independence. The two states maintained an uneasy relationship thereafter, and Russia often tried to foment a communist revolution within Finland, using the Finnish Communist Party and outside agents. Eventually, a non-aggression pact was signed between the two countries in 1932. Stalin viewed Finland as a threat, specifically to Leningrad. He detested the Finnish leader, former Imperial Russian Army General Gustav Mannerheim. Once Stalin felt secure after decimating all opposition to him in the 1937-38 Great Purge, he decided to deal with the threat he perceived from Finland. Entering into negotiations with the Finns in 1939, Stalin had secretly already assembled a huge invasion force should his demands not be met. The war kicked off with a Russian false flag operation. On the 26th of November 1939, the Soviet border post at Mainila was shelled, causing some casualties. Moscow claimed that the Finns were responsible, though recent historical examination had shown that the attack was most probably a Russian false flag operation. The Soviet invasion commenced on the 30th of November. Finland appeared to be in a very bad position. It only had a 100,000-strong army, dwarfed by the Russian invasion force that initially numbered over 400,000 men.
Wow.
The Finns faced significant problems. They lacked motor transport, communications equipment, anti-tank guns, and sufficient automatic weapons. The country had no anti-aircraft guns whatsoever, and very few tanks. But Finland also had some advantages. The fighting would take place mainly in the densely wooded southern part of Finland, where tanks were much less effective and easy to ambush. The Finns were expert winter fighters and had a thorough knowledge of the land they were defending, and their ski troops in particular would play havoc with the Russians, often operating behind their lines. The Russians, though well equipped, particularly with artillery and tanks, had some real disadvantages. Stalin's recent purging of the Soviet officer corps had removed almost all of the most capable officers and would contribute significantly to the Red Army's poor performance in Finland. Another problem was the Red Army's reliability on poorly trained conscripts, whose morale and soldierly abilities were limited. All along the Finnish-Soviet border, Red Army divisions attacked. The main Finnish defence was the Mannerheim Line, with 21,000 men defending it in depth across the Karelian Isthmus opposite Leningrad. Here in particular, the so-called Molotov cocktail petrol bomb was used with alacrity against Russian tanks, destroying 80 in this sector during the initial attack. The Red Army made repeated frontal assaults against Finnish positions, supplemented by artillery and tanks, but sustained heavy casualties in the process. Some infantry units panicking and fleeing the field, indicative of the poor training of Russian conscripts. The Ladoga Karelian front, a wilderness area of forests and lakes under deep snow, favoured the Finns and resulted in the first Finnish victory. Central and northern Finland was also difficult for the Russians to operate in. There were hardly any roads. Here 8 Red Army divisions attacked, trying to cut Finland in half. The Russians suffered badly with the intense cold, having inadequate winter equipment and clothing compared to the Finns. Finnish guerrillas also operated in the Russian rear areas, interfering with supply convoys and generally lowering Russian morale. On the Mannerheim Line, the fighting was more traditional. The Soviets managed some penetrations, but due to poor inter-branch cooperation in the Red Army, they couldn't exploit these breakthroughs effectively. Desperate Soviet commanders ordered more suicidal frontal assaults on prepared Finnish positions to try and burst through, but due to morale and supply issues, the troops often refused to participate. North of Lake Ladoga, things looked grim for the Finns. Here, the Red Army outnumbered them 3-1 and had plenty of artillery and full air supremacy. The Finns initially retreated, but then made a stand at 𝐋𝐈𝐊𝐄. It was here that sniper 𝐋𝐈𝐊𝐄 𝐒𝐂 earned his sobriquet the White Death, eventually credited with 500 kills. The Russians were outmaneuvered and often resorted to digging in and fighting a static war. Finnish forces used raiding and ambushes to great effect, their white-clad ski troopers moving silently through the frozen countryside. In order to prevent the Russians from cutting Finland in two, the Finns put up a brilliant defence, the Suomussalmi region of lakes and wilderness forests. 2 Soviet divisions attempted to advance through this area, but in a month-long battle, one Finnish division was able to break up the Russian units, destroying them one at a time. Here, the Soviets took 7,000 to 9,000 casualties, against only 400 Finns killed and wounded. The Finns also captured huge quantities of Soviet weapons and supplies, which they would use themselves, including dozens of tanks, artillery guns, anti-tank weapons and rifles. In the Arctic, the Soviets attacked into Finnish Lapland. Almost permanently dark at that time of the year, the Soviet thrust was nonetheless powerful, with 35,000 men advancing. One division was outflanked by the Finns and forced to retreat, leaving behind most of its tanks and heavy equipment. The Finns counterattacked the other Soviet division, until a stalemate developed, but were forced to give up the port of Petsamo, Finland's only ice-free port. Naturally, Stalin was less than pleased by his army's performance thus far. The Russian army had not performed as expected, and the Finns were still defending well, even in some cases counterattacking. Foreign volunteers were also arriving in Finland to help the hard-pressed army. Stalin ordered that the main focus would now be on the Karelian front opposite the Mannerheim line, in order to capture the territory Stalin had originally demanded the Finns hand over. Soviet forces staged training attacks and generally sorted themselves out, solving many of the problems they had experienced earlier, and with the arrival of new tanks and guns, they were ready to launch an enormous attack. The number of Red Army divisions was increased from 10 to around 25, totaling 600,000 men. On the 1st of February 1940, the fresh Soviet assault commenced. In the first 24 hours of the operation, Russian artillery fired 300,000 shells at the Finnish defenders, who numbered some 150,000 troops. Using mass artillery strikes and infantry attacks supported by armor, the Soviets began to smash through the Mannerheim defenses. Things went so bad for the Finns that on the 15th of February 1940, Marshal Mannerheim ordered a general withdrawal to a fallback line. Although the Russians had begun to make progress against the exhausted Finns, the cost in men and material remained high. The entire operation had become an embarrassment to Stalin and the Soviet Union. If the war went on much longer, there was a fear in Moscow that the British and French might enter the conflict on Finland's side. Stalin also worried that once the spring thaw broke, his armoured forces would become bogged down in muddy forests, destroying the offensive's momentum. Secret negotiations in Sweden were opened to end the conflict. Germany was also pressuring for an end to the conflict. The Germans didn't want their supplies of iron ore from northern Sweden interfered with, particularly if the British and French got involved and the war spread to Sweden. Sweden was already fighting in Finland. Some Swedish infantry units and part of the Air Force had entered combat against the Russians. By the 9th of March 1940, with Stalin making a series of harsh demands, the Finnish position on the Karelian Isthmus was worsening. Finland was running out of arms and ammunition. The British and French had not entered the war, as many hoped they would. The Finnish government decided to accept the Soviet terms, while they still could. On the 12th of March, the Moscow Peace Treaty was signed. Finland agreed to cede to Russia a portion of Karelia, the entire Karelian Isthmus, and some land north of Lake Ladoga, and some islands, in total 9% of Finnish territory. This was more than the Soviets had originally demanded before the war. So with this dire result, surely the Finnish campaign had been a waste of time. Well, not quite. There was a fear that if they had given in to Stalin's demands in 1939, he would simply have raised more and more demands later on, eventually, of course, leading to some kind of military conflict, perhaps with Finland in a weaker position. Giving in 1939 to Stalin would also have encouraged the Soviet secret police to continue their operations to foment revolution inside Finland itself, with the hope of creating some kind of Finnish Soviet Socialist Republic. The Finns felt that they had to fight, otherwise they might have disappeared as a nation. The war had cost the Finnish army 25,000 killed and 45,000 wounded, but the Russians had come off much worse, with between 126 and 168,000 dead or missing, and over 200,000 wounded or sick. The Finns had knocked out or captured over 3,000 Soviet tanks during operations. One of the important outcomes of the Winter War was the perceived weakness of the Red Army. Russia appeared to be a paper tiger, and this belief emboldened Hitler concerning his own plans of conquest in the East. Germany and Finland soon became allies. Finland would fight the Soviets again following the German invasion of the USSR in June 1941, and managed to recover all of its territory lost in 1940. But in 1944, it once again faced Russian invasion, this time by a much better trained and led Red Army. Dumping its German ally, Finland quickly negotiated a peace settlement with Stalin that prevented it being overrun and occupied by the Soviet Union. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share, and also visit my audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton. You can also help to support both of my channels at PayPal and Patreon, details in the description box below.
Okay guys, this video shows us a journey way back on history. Okay guys, from this video you can tell that Finland has undergone a lot. They've seen a lot. Okay, and I am sure right now they must be prepared for whatever it is Russians have for them. Okay, someone actually recommended this video to me. Okay, and I am glad I did check it out. Okay guys, I need your comments, I need your thoughts, your views, your opinions. What do you think about this video? Did this really happen? Please let us know in the comment section. Okay, educate us. A lot of us do not know much about Finland and would gladly read your comments. Okay, thank you guys for watching, and see you guys in my next video. Bye.